These are the 7 best everyday watches that regular collectors like you and I actually want to wear, and that you might not even heard of or even considered yet for your own collection. Now, I need to preface by saying that my first watch is unfortunately one of Casio's most elusive, but I promise it's worth it if you hear me out on this one. That would be the Casio beside M.S.L 100, but what is it exactly? I didn't know much about this watch when I first laid my eyes on it a few years ago, so it wouldn't surprise me if you've never heard of this watch before. Nonetheless, it has all the makings of an excellent daily driver, if you can get your hands on one, of course. Rumor has it that Casio produced the Beside for a short time for the Southeast Asia market and Middle Eastern markets, but sadly, it's no longer in production, and Casio has even stated that it has no plans to re-release it either. So if you enjoy a good watch hunt, the Beside might be the one worth looking into. For me, this one's a curious watch because it looks quite expensive for what it is, which is an affordable base level quartz and stainless steel watch. In fact, the Casio Beside is the cheapest watch on this entire list at just under $100 retail. Yet it's somewhat reminiscent of what we would see from the likes of Grand Seiko, Tissot, Zenith, and dare I even say it, Patek Philippe. Looking closer at the Beside, you can see what I mean. Although not executed to nearly the same level, the flaky texture dial reminds me of a Grand Seiko. And the finishes and integrated shape of the case have a Tissot or Patek Philippe vibe. It looks surprisingly luxurious once it's on the wrist, but with the carefree attitude of an entry-level quartz watch. I still wouldn't knock it around too much though, because you might never get the chance to buy another one of these again. And these watches will still set you back around $500 on the pre-owned market. So if you're interested in learning more, I did an in-depth review of the Casio Beside here. This one is from a newer watch brand out there in Kyoto, Japan called Kuoe. They have a broad range of classically designed timepieces that I would definitely recommend checking out. But to me, it's their Old Smith field watch modeled after vintage British military watches that caught my eye. More specifically, the 35mm reference 90002, which retails for $418 for the base model. Field watches in general are great for daily wear because, well, they're durable and easy to read. The wearers of these watches from decades ago were quite literally in the trenches and required a watch that was easy to read with a quick twist of the wrist. That's exactly what we have here, but reimagined for the modern collector. Kuoe offers a few different upgrades for the reference 90002, which is nice for people who like to customize their watches. I opted for the base model with a domed mineral glass crystal and orange tinted luminescent paint. If you prefer, you can swap the crystal for sapphire and the lume for Swiss Super Luminova in a hue called Old Light Radium. The upgraded models have a remarkable grainy texture that adds a lot of depth to the watch face, which is slightly present on non-upgraded dials, albeit not nearly as obvious. Enthusiasts also have the choice of a date or no date dial, 35mm or 38mm case, and a nylon, leather, or 316L stainless steel bracelet. A Seiko NH38 automatic mechanical movement with a 40-hour power reserve and hacking seconds function powers each variant. Kuoe is staunchly dedicated to using Japanese movements, so it makes sense that they would choose a caliber produced by Seiko for this watch. Now, what I like about the Old Smith is the juxtaposition of different finishing techniques. It has the matte finish style we would expect from a vintage-inspired field watch, but with a polished stainless steel case for a bit more glitz for times when you want a dressier watch. In my opinion, it's perfect for those who want a versatile automatic field watch for under $500, but prefer something other than a Hamilton. I'm excited to share my next pick, the 6190 M.S.L chronometer from the French brand Serica. It's a serious tool watch with a cost-rated mechanical movement and a retro bracelet that is so funky and unique that I can't help but absolutely fall in love with. As of the filming of this video, it's Serica's latest offering and will be produced in limited quantities of just 500 pieces throughout this year, and with 3 different dial colors: storm gray, polar white, and enamel black. Now, if you're already familiar with Serica, you might have gathered that this watch hails from the broader 6190 field chronometer series, but with a slightly different dial decorated with long applied lollipop style hour markers. It also carries a new distinction, M.S.L, which is an acronym for a measurement of elevation and altitude called mean sea level. This distinction helps tie the watch back to its tool watch origins, despite its somewhat ambiguous aesthetic. And speaking of aesthetics, there sure is a lot to unpack here. The case is relatively modest at 37.7mm in diameter, but has some remarkable finishes and design elements that will undoubtedly improve the overall daily wrist-wearing experience. The lugs twist inward and feature dual brushed and polished finishes to match the bezel, which reminds me of the bezel on the Casio mentioned previously in this video. It's very Patek with the matte top surface and shinier beveled edges. And then there's that bracelet, which is known in watchmaking as the bun clip, and has been making a bit of a comeback in the recent years, with Serica leading the charge. Much like the earliest instances of the bracelet, which date as far back as the 1920s, the bond clip on the Serica 6190 M.S.L has links consisting of interlocking bars and sleeves. This design allows the clasp to be placed anywhere along the length of the bracelet, between any two links for the ultimate sizing experience. Not to mention, the hollow links feel much lighter on the wrist for everyday wear. This watch is easily the sportiest of the bunch. It will also appeal to history buffs as a faithful interpretation of a wartime observation watch, also known as the B-Uhr, which was developed for the German Ministry for Aviation. Now, Laco was among the few watchmakers entrusted with producing this type of watch during that era. And while it doesn't have the same robust 55mm diameter as the original 1940s model, it follows a similar design and blueprint. For example, you'll notice that the leather strap still has double rivets, which were once necessary to hold a strap to fixed bars on vintage models, but are now just purely decorative thanks to the invention of handy spring bars. It also sports that unmistakable onion-shaped crown that the wearer can easily manipulate, even when wearing pilot gloves. Now, there are two dial variations that exist, each aimed at providing perfect legibility. There's the Type A dial, a simpler dial with a single chapter ring, and the Type B with an inner hour ring and an outer minute track. For this list, I chose my personal favorite, the Type B dial. It has a hand-wound Laco 210 movement based on the Sellita SW210. And it features a hacking seconds, which was a staple for many pilots used back in the day for navigation. Priced at just under $1,200 retail and featuring 100 meters of water resistance, the Laco Leipzig deserves a spot on my list. The next watch comes to us from a newer independent watch boutique in Singapore, the Tennet Somerset. What I like about this young brand is its desire to think outside the box. It isn't enough to just display the time on a classic sector dial. Instead, they've opted for dynamic textures and dial furniture such as teardrop-shaped indices and skeleton delta hands, for a watch that is just as enjoyable to look at day in, day out as it is reliable. As a result of this unique design language, the Tennet Somerset has a modern retro aesthetic about it that I find quite fascinating, particularly the various design elements of the case. The bezel has a concave shape that swoops gently away from the crystal, and the lugs, inspired by vintage watch horn lugs, add to the inherently sporty feel of the watch. Most notable is the crown, which forgoes traditional fluted design for one decorated with domino holds for maximum grip when winding the manual wind movement. It's a fashion-forward timepiece, yet I think it will appeal to vintage watch lovers who appreciate nods to the past. And it's comfortable too, measuring at 38mm in diameter and featuring a supple leather strap provided by renowned strap retailer Deluxe. Straight on the heels of the Tennet Somerset is another visually striking watch. This time, the Kurono Tokyo Seiji, which master watchmaker Hajime Asuoka-sensei thoughtfully developed to achieve the perfect blue-green watch face. It's only the second time the brand has released a solid lacquer dial watch, and I have to say, they really nailed the teal hue. It almost reminds me of the Tiffany blue color that recently had a lot of watch collectors in a chokehold. It has a vintage-inspired vibe from the Art Deco silver minute rings to the unsigned crown and cambered sapphire crystal. The Kurono Tokyo Seiji was initially developed for female collectors, featuring a 37mm case and a white leather strap. The brand even went so far as to restrict the sale of the watch to only women, which is a bit curious because 37mm is pretty standard for men's dress watches. Still, I can see what they were trying to achieve with the case size and overall softer color palette. Overall, I think all fans of Japanese watchmaking, men and women alike, will like this watch, particularly people who appreciate the value of an affordable timepiece designed by a master watchmaker. The Kurono Tokyo Seiji initially produced in limited quantities of just 500 watches, and has unfortunately already sold out on the retail level. However, if you're interested in adding one to your watch box, a few examples have already popped up on various reselling platforms, such as Chrono24 and Hodinkee. And the great news is that men and women can both buy it without restrictions at the pre-owned level. Now, I know people will hate my last watch because it's a Rolex. But let's be honest here, no list of the best everyday watches would be complete without one of Rolex's most popular entry-level dress watches, the Oyster Perpetual. More specifically, reference 116000. In my opinion, this model is perfect for everyday wear because the stainless steel finish and matching silver dial fly a little more under the radar than other Rolexes. It's the kind of watch you don't easily get tired of wearing. The OP is also incredibly approachable at 36mm in diameter. It's comfortable on the wrist and appeals to a broad range of wrist sizes, sandwiched between the mid-size 34mm and 41mm models. Of course, there's the matter of reliability, which this Rolex has in spades. The Oyster case, named after its incredible water resistance, is hermetically sealed up to 100 meters via a twin lock crown. Twin lock is just Rolex jargon for a crown with double seals to protect the movement from moisture and dust. It was introduced in 1953 and is a staple on modern Rolex dress watches like the 116000 I have right here. And it helps that it's waterproof enough to wear throughout the day without a care in the world. That brings me to the movement, which operates on Rolex's self-winding or perpetual technology. If you wear this Rolex regularly, you don't have to worry about winding it, which is quite convenient. It has a straightforward time-only movement, no extra bells and whistles, just fine Rolex craftsmanship. Man, I sound like a Rolex fanboy. I promise I'm not, I just really love this watch. But anyways, I think it's the perfect watch for people who want to get into Rolex ownership and see what it's like. Well, that's it for this one. If you stuck around to the very end, thanks so much. I hope I've helped you find the perfect everyday watch for your collection. Or if you're just starting off your collection, I hope this gives you a little bit more inspiration. If not, hopefully you learned something new from some perhaps lesser known gems in the realm of watchmaking. I'm Chris, this channel is Clicky Bezel, and I'll see you in the next one.